Hello friends, I am Dr. Abhilash Naik from India. In this small video presentation, I will be talking about my reflections on a live class by Dr. Tony Carr, who talked about the networking of the technologists across Africa through a project called Emerge Africa. I am first of all thankful to Dr. Nelly, Professor Thomas and all my participants who have inspired me to be on this course and for giving me this opportunity to make this video presentation of my understanding of the live class. As you can see here, the title of the presentation is Networking Educational Technologies Across Africa, and this is an initiative of Emerge Africa. As you can see here, the subtitle Unleashing the Power of Networks. Throughout the presentation, Dr. Carr, who is working with for the Center for Innovation in Learning and Teaching, University of Cape Town, talks about how Emerge Africa has been responsible in bringing about a revolution in the networking of the technologists, educational technologists across Africa. Here we can see that explosion of the educational technologists in African universities. It has led to a couple of developments. First of all, it has led to the explosion of e-learning projects in African universities. Second, we can see a rapidly growing profession in large continent. But at the same time, he also talked about the problems like the limited local community for the specialists, and he also highlighted the need for formal, informal and semi-formal professional development opportunities. Then he talked about the various kinds of conferences which were organized by Emerge, like the conference in 2004 on blended collaborative learning in Southern Africa, then the conference in 2006 on learning landscapes, then the conference in 2008 on professionalizing practices. So in all these conferences, the participation was from as many as 23 countries across the world and 12 countries from Africa, and the participation was very good. And many of the deliberations in these conferences, they focused on the social type of conversation, which included both synchronous and asynchronous. Then he talked about how it started. It started in the year 1999 from the Westerboard High School, Cape Town, which opened a lot of possibilities for the use of technology in the field of education. Now the conference model, which was practiced at Emerge, was talked about, like the phases of the conversation, what kind of conversation, the particular as I have already talked about. He talked about the social type of conversation, then the trained conference hosts, then there was a formal and informal type of conversations, so your dialogues, then synchronous and asynchronous types of conversations were also held, and programmed and participant initiated conversations were also held during the conferences. And one thing that he pointed out, that in all these conferences one could notice that highly engaged participants, they valued some of the aspects of the conferences. What were those? Those were like the interaction across space and time. People from different parts of the world, they could interact with one another. Then there was scope for reflective engagement. After the presentations were over, at the conference, there was scope for people to reflectively engage in the performance. Then access to the community, it was available for the community to have a look at them and give their responses, and learning about online interaction. That was the most important part of these conferences. He also talked about the problems that rose up during the conferences, like he calls them disturbances. Under the head disturbances, he talked about various types of disturbances, like the external issues, which included the issues related to time, issues related to internet access, which is related to bandwidth. Then he talked about the conference technology. That means what kind of technology was being used in the conferences, whether they were suitable or not, and the synchronous environment, forums, logged in, all these things, logging in, all these things were created sometimes disturbances. Then the discussion forums which were available with these conferences, they also had some problems like limited participation, quality of discussion was not very good, and some issues also they remained unresolved. And he also talked about the disturbance related to the design of choices, like packed programs were there, program choices were limited, and site navigation was sometimes also controlled. But in spite of all these, as I have already indicated, he talked about the success of this project on the whole, because the participation from various parts of the world was there. 23 countries across the world and 12 countries only from across Africa. So we can see here emergence of emergence as a super center for professional development. This under the aegis of this emerge, even workshops were organized. Workshops on changing the online facilitator practices, workshops on learning analytics, workshops on and online interviews were there, workshops on content curation were there, organized. So all these things were organized under the aegis of emerge. Not only this, emerge also organized live online meetings which helped people across the African continent to connect with the technologies spread across different parts of Africa, and it engaged them in academic deliberations. eMerge also facilitated the Facebook group which focused on the technologies from across different parts of the world. He talked about a key learning from eMerge 2012. It's like this, that conversations weave, wax and wane across the whole conference ecosystem, including the formal conference site, the synchronous meeting server, the dedicated Facebook group and the Twitter stream. Conversation can start in one space, shift to another and then sometimes return. Actually all these things, they are subject to change from time to time according to the need of the context. Then he talked about the networks and the communities in different parts of the Africa. He also focused on the need for interweaving and intermorphing among the members of the online communities. And then he asked himself whether this eMerge 2012 can be a network for our community. Then value creation networks, we referred to one of the books by Wagner, Turner and Delatt, in which there are different cycles where these communities and networks, they create value in the cycles, like immediate value created by the activities and the interactions, potential value created in the form of knowledge capital, applied value which is realized through changes in their practices, then value which is realized as performance improvements, and reframing value through defining success. So these are different values which were created, which could be created in the networks. Then he talked about a complexifying landscape of practice. As you can see, different kinds of people, different kinds of resources, different kinds of organizations are involved in this complex landscape of practice, because we have NGOs here, we have the social sites here, like we have Google, Wikipedia, we have tropical website, we have bloggers, we have client communities, we have social networks, we have professional networks, we have informal communities. All of them can come together for making use of technology for enhancing the quality of their performance over the years. Now he talked about some of the good practices in the virtual community of practitioners. These practices, they depended heavily upon some things, a few things like the technology and its usability. How technology can be used in a particular context and whether it is useful or not, that's very important. Then communication is another factor which decides this. Founders with prior knowledge of for each other. Then a sense of belonging has to be there, otherwise it doesn't happen. A sense of purpose has to be there. An etiquette, modeling of guidelines and for good conduct, that has to be also integrated into this community practitioners. Then use of accessible language. Then most importantly, time to build up a rapport, trust and fostering of a sense of community. Unless people are connected to each other through a sense of community and belongingness, things like this don't happen. He also referred to the workshop at ELA 2011, then a pilot seminar in 2012 which was organized by them. Then he referred to the good practice by Jerome Duga at the University of Jos. As you can see, Jerome used his knowledge of Adobe Connect to set up a colleague who presented a conference paper online because of the cost of travel to Europe. Online presentation is now part of the training he provides to fellow academics in the e-learning fellowship program, which he coordinates at the University of Jos. Activities undertaken by eMERGE, they include various kinds of activities like online facilitation, online creation of courses, effective use of the materials, social media, etc., etc. A lot many things he talked about. Then these are some of the forthcoming events that he talked about while discussing the topic networking education technologies across Africa. Like these are the events which are coming up: digital storytelling seminar in the from 18th to 26th March, 31st to 4th April that will be M-learning via audio, 31st to 4th April that would be dedicated to how to use tablets for effective adult education in Africa. 14th to 16th May would be dedicated to learning design workshop, and 13th April to 5th May will be used for inclusive design of e-learning environments. And 18th to June to 20th June it will be the web in Africa. So all these events are likely to be held in the next few months. So what have I learned from this presentation? It is essential to have networking of the technologies across the world to create platforms for better teaching learning experiences. Technology can play a crucial role in the professional development of the teachers and meeting the gap in human resources in developing countries. Various modes of interactions are possible with the help of technology, like online seminars, conferences, webinars and online teaching. Technology is not free from disturbances which need to be addressed before technology is put to wider use. The participation and performance of the technologists in online academic activities depend a lot on their competency and commitments. Use of appropriate technology can ensure both sharing and caring among the members of the online communities. Now, my plans for future would be like this. I will join eMERGE Africa to contribute to its initiatives in providing access to education to people in the developing countries. I will explore new networks of technologies and educations working in online education for my personal and professional growth. I will share my learning from the presentation with my colleagues and friends to contribute to their academic growth. Thank you very much.